The external flying buttresses that take all the weight and the pressures from the vaults, from the timber roof, and transfer it away from the wall directly into the ground.
Romanesque architecture doesn't have this advantage. There, we have short, heavy piers, thick walls with small windows, round arches, and groin vaults, creating solid but not very tall buildings. In the Gothic church, the walls do not carry the whole weight of the structure. The inner piers are slim and narrow. The rib vaults are thin under a tall timber roof. Massive windows take up most of the wall. This openness was possible because the structural support has been moved to the outside. Massive upright piers surround the building. Giant arches, like great arms, spring from them to resist the pressures of weight and wind.
What I like particularly in church, and I think it is unique, it's ensemble of stained glass. It gives an atmosphere, it gives really what the people of the time wanted to be. It is a church in which people pray. So the stained glass is to give a light which is not natural light, which is another light.
Anne Prache is an eminent French medievalist who has devoted much of her professional life to the study of the Cathedral of Chartres and its stained glass windows.
The moment you get inside this church, the light changes, so you are really in another world, in a sacred world. It must have been a very great enterprise to decorate such a church. It is supposed to cover about 7 acres of windows, which is something terrific when you think of the means the people had at the time. The church is dedicated to the Virgin, and you find her everywhere. She is the center of all the decoration of the church. If you look at the central window on the west facade, which is the larger window ever made in the 12th century, 11 meters, something like 30 feet high, you have a great composition, a kind of decoration just as you could see on murals or on tapestries or on great mosaics. You can see that on top of the window, she is enthroned between angels. So she is really the Queen of Heaven. For the stained glass makers, they had no large pieces of glass. They had only small pieces of them because they blew the glass. They could not produce it as it is produced today. So they could produce only little bits of glass. So each time they wanted to change the color, they had to change the piece of glass. And to put all the pieces of glass together, they had to have lead going all around. So it's like a mosaic. If you start studying these windows, you can learn a lot about the life of the Middle Ages. We have the furriers. We have even the sculptors. and probably it's one of the best representations of the 13th century. It's really a great documentation for us. So I think this stained glass of Chartres is really telling about the way people lived, the way they thought, the way they prayed, all their ideals and beliefs.
The cathedrals of the Gothic age, like Chartres, were indeed, as Abbot Suger had said, new works suffused by a new light. In that combination of soaring stonework, sculpture, and painted glass, they had created an art to set beside and even to surpass the works of classical antiquity. As we've seen, theirs was a living art which had taken centuries to come to fruition, and it still has the power to astonish us by the sheer quantity and quality of the great churches, the vast areas they covered, the huge spaces they enveloped, and their ethereal beauty. Their art originated slowly and painfully, but those who came after them, the artists whom we now call those of the early Renaissance, would truly be standing on the shoulders of giants.